Aloha, nerds, and welcome back to another episode of the Salawag's Why It's Great Gut Reaction, where I watch things and react from the gut. So this week I had the pleasure of watching a few awesome movies, two of which I want to talk about today. Hashtag Alive and Ravenous. I love zombie movies. 28 Days Later broke me into the whole mold, and then I had the luck of watching Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead and all that great stuff. I haven't seen them all, but I've seen most of the popular stuff, and I love it. I love The Walking Dead, up until recently. But this week, I was on Netflix, and I checked out Hashtag Alive, and it was awesome. Basically, this guy is, I'm not sure if he's living alone or with his family. He's in an apartment building, in his apartment alone. He has his bedroom with a great setup, video games and all that. He's a nerdy gamer kind of guy, and the zompocalypse happens one day when he wakes up, and he watches it happen outside of his window, and he hears his neighbors get attacked, and he basically fortifies himself inside of his room or inside of his apartment and rides it out. It was a very interesting point of view on the zompocalypse, just having someone who's already kind of a loner type of guy ride out the zompocalypse. That's kind of the most interesting part of this movie is the notion of, like, well, what's the most realistic reason you would survive and how you would survive long enough to survive. And riding it out is basically the way he gets through this zombie flick. He has just enough food to last a few days. Eventually, he gets brave enough to try and get out of his apartment and try and get food from other people's places that he can try to get into. That either zombies have broken in or he has some kind of way of getting out. But it's actually, this is a movie from South Korea, I believe. It's a Korean zombie movie. So for those of you who don't like subtitles, I say suck it up and watch it, because you don't really need the subtitles in this movie. The visual storytelling is strong enough. The director is Il Cho. I believe this is his first feature film, but he handles himself very, very well. I wouldn't even believe that it was a first feature film for someone, because it's really well made. The movie's really well put together. Cinematography, the performances are great. And with the exception of a few scenes that do have dialogue, this movie plays very well without it. So I would recommend just checking it out and just watch it. Just watch the experience and try and feel what the characters are feeling. I think it's a very relatable, universal kind of movie. And again, the performances are solid. You're going to feel something for it, regardless of understanding it. And I honestly, at this point, I've watched enough foreign material movies where I'm not even worried about the subtitles anymore. I just watch them. I just read them if I have to read them. But the storytelling, the great thing is that these filmmakers that I've seen are great visual storytellers, and like Train to Busan, even though that's very heavy in dialogue, the visuals still tell the story. I love Train to Busan. If you haven't seen Train to Busan and you're a zombie fan, you've got to see Train to Busan. And Hashtag Alive feels very much like it's from the same day as Train to Busan, because Train to Busan basically takes place in one day, and it is these people watching as the zombie apocalypse happen on a train, and the train is what allows them to survive the length of time that they survive. And in the case of Hashtag Alive, you've got basically the movie hanging on one person for the majority of the movie. 70% of the movie he spends alone, but he does eventually, discover another person is alive, who's living in an apartment across the street from him, and they can see each other, and ends up being this girl around his own age. He's around college age. She's around college age, maybe a little bit older, and they start communicating through text and through hand signals, and trying not to attract the zombies to them, of course. And that becomes a cute little relationship. It can become sort of a boy meets girl, unclear whether it's romantic or not, but very interesting boy meets girl kind of relationship. And it's a fun bit of the movie, because the movie is probably the least bleak zombie film I've ever seen. It's incredibly positive despite how dark the circumstances are. which is probably part of the deeper themes of the movie. But I had no real reference point. I didn't look too hard in interviews on this one. I think this movie is a very good, feel-good zombie movie. I don't want to spoil the ending, but it's a feel-good zombie movie. You're not going to feel horrible throughout this movie. You're not going to hate humanity throughout this movie. I think is actually has a very positive outlook on humanity despite the circumstances. It's not like Shaun of the Dead fun or anything, but it's just not so dire. So I really want to recommend #Live on Netflix right now. Timestamp. This is December 10th, 11th, whatever the fuck it is. Ooh, I said a curse word. Oh no. Suck it up. Yeah, great film. Oh, and I really want to shout out the actors. Ah In Yu plays Oh Jun Woo. I wrote this down so I would try not to fuck it up. And please, if you are Korean and you know if I'm fucking up, let me know. Or don't let me know. Let me feel good. This guy's been in a lot of stuff. I'm not familiar with any of it, but a couple of the titles look familiar, like Six Flying Dragons and The Throne. I think these might also be available on Netflix. He's great. He's a great lead. He seems like a college age or slightly older kid. And he has this boyish quality, which kind of makes you think, how the hell could you survive? But at the same time, when the scenes happen where he needs to survive, totally sells it. I totally believe, okay, this is how you survive. That totally works. And then the girl that he's talking to throughout the movie, Park Shin Hye, who plays Kim Yoo Bin. They don't even use their names in the movie for the most part, so I didn't even know their names. But she has some scene-stealing moments of really great, small, subtle, but really nice performances. I think this show is really cast very well. So hats off to the director and the casting director. I thought it was shot beautifully. I'll put the cinematographer's name in the troll scroll here. The really beautiful, nice looking movie. This great production design, great set. And I wanted to give some positive comments on just production ability or the way it was produced. This movie basically takes place in two locations. It's mostly the apartment, and then we see the girl's apartment, and the only outdoor location we only go to a few different times in the movie, and it's just the space between their two buildings, and there as they watch zombie attacks happen between them. So in terms of just making a movie, that from a script writing point of view, you made something that is producible, because it's in locations that if you had to, you literally could shoot these in someone's apartment. Hopefully they didn't. I'm sure that it's got to be on sets, because so much action happens in these apartments, despite what I've described to you so far. But that, in terms of just talking about why it's great, the producibility of the movie from a writing standpoint, really, you could see how they were able to make it, just because it was so simple, very few characters, and the most people that we see are zombies. So also from the fan point of view, you're not getting overwhelmed with too many characters, with too many stories, and too many things going on. You're really just getting the story of two people, and then because you're watching this because you like zombies, you get in all the zombies you want. It's just endless zombies running around throughout this movie. Whether they're attacking the main character or not, you're seeing some zombies somewhere. What I like, again, it feels like it's taking place. Like I don't think this movie is meant to take place during Train to Busan. It feels like its own thing, but it genuinely, I like to feel like it does, because there's such a sense of the franticness and the destruction feels appropriate to what happened in Train to Busan. So in my own little mind, it's like a side quote, but it really has nothing to do with that movie. So #Alive, if you like zombies, and even if you don't like subtitles, I recommend watching it, because it's just a very, very sweet, good movie that is also very destructive with the zombies. Check that out. Next up, just the other night I checked out this movie Ravenous. I'd seen the trailer. This was also on Netflix. I'd seen the trailer before. The trailer just didn't sell it for me. And honestly, I don't think don't watch the trailer for either of these movies. Just jump into them because hell, you know what a zombie movie is. It's gonna be a zombie movie. But in this case, I had watched the trailer a couple months ago, and the trailer just did not get me, so I didn't try it. And I didn't even realize it was a French movie. Turns out this is a French movie. Ravenous, the real title is Les Enfants, which I don't even know what that means. I didn't take the time to translate that, but I will try to put it in the troll scroll here. If there's nothing here, then I failed. This was a great film. I genuinely thought, Hashtag Alive is a really good film. Like a really good film. Damn near great. I think I could barely suggest anything to make that movie better, but on the whole, I would say Hashtag Alive is a really good film. Ravenous is a great film. I mean, it really is. Talk about not needing any subtitles. It's really visually told perfectly. The presentation of the zombies is awesome, and it's slightly unique. For the most part, it's very familiar zombies, but they just have their own little eccentricities that make them unique and special to this movie. And what I like, they touch it. There's a nice interview I read, which I'll try to include the link in the description below, about the director's point of view on zombies. Basically, when we get into this movie, the zompocalypse is kind of already started, and the characters kind of already know the rules, so we're not seeing them see it happen and watch them learn the rules. They already know the rules. We're seeing them play it out, and we're just seeing how the rules work ourselves. Kind of like, Batman 89 versus Batman Begins. In Hashtag Alive, Batman Begins, we see how the zombies happen. We see the rules played out. But Batman 1989 to Ravenous, like, this dude's already Batman. People already know how this works. Batman preys on the fucking criminals and all that stuff. Zombies are zombies, and they do what zombies do. In both of these movies, fast zombies. So if you were just wondering, are they fast, are they slow? Fast zombies. But I would say the ravenous zombies for sure are much more terrifying. And they're much more human than any other zombie I've seen before. Basically it's so simple. It really is a simple survival movie where all these different survivors are surviving different ways, and they have essentially come together into a group. Not too unlike Walking Dead, but also not like Walking Dead, because the way these zombies are presents different circumstances for the characters. So you see the characters look at these zombies in a different way, and they all come together and don't even talk about the zombies. They just worry about whether the other person might actually be infected, and it's just right into the shit. It's just interesting to watch them try to survive, and especially because these zombies are just a little bit smarter than a normal zombie. They don't do what normal zombies do, where they stand still. These zombies, when they're not chasing you, are standing still, and they're watching you. Kind of like velociraptors, and they kind of plan it out and kind of act. They kind of act intentionally in a way. It's very interesting, and yet they do act the same amongst each other, but they don't act the same in terms of what you expect from a different zombie flick. Hashtag Alive is what you expect from any zombie flick, slow or fast. It's all what you expect. It's just the characters that are unique. Whereas in this one, the characters, what they're experiencing is special to this kind of zombie experience. I think Ravenous has more in common with Walking Dead than it does with any other zombie flick, except for the zombies. But the zombies are actually kind of unique in that they are thinkers, but not in the Resident Evil form of thinking zombie. There's something else going on, and there's no quest for answers or any of that stuff. I actually enjoyed that part. This movie is just kind of just terrifying, and it's about enduring. and trying to just make it on foot. Really, it's kind of it's a race. This movie starts off with the visuals of race cars, and that really is what this movie is about, because these people really can't stay still for too long with these zombies, because these zombies are smart and destructive. And there's the feeling this leaves me with. I think Train to Busan was the greatest zombie flick I had seen, since maybe 28 Days Later. I think the great zombie flicks, as far as I've seen, because I haven't seen it all, but as far as I've seen, the great zombie flicks are Night of the Living Dead, Day of the Dead, both by George A. Romero, 28 Days Later, Train to Busan. That was my list until I'd seen Ravenous, and now Ravenous is damn near the top. It's hard to tell what the top is with these 5 movies, because I think they're all fantastic. I think Day of the Dead still holds up as a really special kind of look into how people would survive and what they would do while zombies were attacking. And I think Ravenous actually, especially during this time of Corona, it's very interesting to look at how we're being trained to be afraid of people. I've always kind of been naturally afraid of people myself, and I love this movie so much. I really wanted to know what the hell the director was thinking about, so I actually read an article, which I mentioned. I'll try to leave a link in the description. And he talked about he's more afraid of people than anything else. That he talked about how he hunts. He's a hunter, and he's like, of course, if I saw a zombie, I would be terrified and want to get out of there. But if I saw another hunter and he was a crazy guy, then I would be running like crazy. And that was kind of his approach to these zombies, where you're not sure if they're people or if they're just crazy people. You're not sure if they're zombies or if they're just crazy people, and that's kind of the thing. And then there is a character who is kind of a crazy guy who pops up, and he's actually, I don't want to spoil it too much, he's kind of a comic relief when he does, but at the same time, this guy's not right in the head, and it's just, it kind of just adds to that theme of not trusting people and being afraid of other people. Here we are in COVID, and getting too close to a person could mean contracting something. The stakes just keep raising higher with what we got to be afraid of. It's not enough to be afraid of nukes. It's not enough to be afraid of war or famine or drought. Now we got to be afraid of just talking to anybody. The breath they carry could kill us. That's the fucking terrifying thing. It's not enough to be afraid of a bite anymore from a dog, but just breathing next to somebody is enough to get you, which technically has always been something we should be worried about. That's how we get flus and influenzas and all that. But here we are with Ravenous, and it's all about that fear. It's 100% about that fear of other people. And one of the early people that gets killed in this movie, there's this interesting scene where he's walking up to a couple of zombies, and they're not moving. And he sees something up in the corner of his eye, and he turns and looks. And he sees way up, and this is a spoiler, by the way, but it's also in the front of the movie, so it's not spoiling the end of the movie. But he sees way high up at the top of a tree, of a very, very tall tree. They're in a forest, and way high up at the top of a tree is this little boy. I don't know what age, a little older than toddlers, somewhere between 4 and 7. There's this little boy way up in the tree, hugging onto the tree, and with his eyes wide, terrified. And when the guy looking up at the little boy looks in the direction of what the boy is looking at, he turns, and there's this whole crowd of zombies just standing, staring. And it's just the eeriest feeling. And so here's the real spoiler. So don't listen to the next minute if you don't want me to spoil something in this movie. If you're already interested, just watch the movie. The guy books it. And for the rest of the movie, I'm sitting there wondering what happened to that boy. hoping that the zombies chased that guy and the boy got away. But where would he go to? You know what I mean? It's just this movie is just filled with that, filled with incidents and moments and these lingering, wondering things. It actually feels more real than anything else. Like in real life, when things happen, they're unexpected. In real life, when you get in the middle of something, it's like that, where you just don't know for sure why it happened, how it happened, where it's going to happen, where it's going to go. And you just have to kind of roll with it because it's life and you have to keep moving. And I think that's the most haunting thing about this movie. It's, Train to Busan was a heartbreaker. It was a serious heartbreaker emotionally. This movie is just, it's an anxiety driver where you're just filled with anxiety constantly. But the presentation, you barely see any actual attacks. Frequently throughout the movie, attacks happen off camera or off screen, and you'll just hear something, or you see the body of the person shake, but you won't see the actual incident. And that too, it just adds a level of terror and freakiness to it. So, yeah, I love Ravenous. I think this is definitely one of the best zombie films ever made. French film director Robin Albert, I hope I'm saying that right. He's directed 11 projects at least. He's worked on movies and TV. Actually, I was calling it a French film. Actually, it's a Canadian film, French Canada. Uh, Bonjour. I really wish I kept up with my French and could understand what you people were saying, but they were fantastic. I gotta say, the cast in this movie is fantastic. And what's amazing, I found out actually a lot of the director's family members were zombies in the movie, which I thought was crazy. He had made a really low budget, on location film. From a producibility standpoint, he basically made indie style, shot things guerrilla, shot things in places he knew, shot a whole feature film like this. And the cast has a lot of interesting faces because they kind of look familiar. There's one guy who kind of looks like Tom Hardy, who's sort of the lead, and then there's someone else. There's another actor who looks like somebody else, but I think my favorite character in the movie, actually, she has almost no lines. Her character's name is Celine, and she's the best zombie killer. I see this woman, and I can't help but think of Zombieland because she's just a great zombie killer. The actress's name is Bridget Poupard. I hope I'm saying that right. Jesus, she great performance for how little she says, but she's the zombie killer. And it's cool how each character really is defined by how they behave, because not Tom Hardy, who's the lead, kind of gets a little bit of a girlfriend, sort of, in this movie. No one, the way this movie moves so fast, there's no time to develop relationships, but you can see existing relationships be tested, which is interesting. Relationships are created and tested at the same time. But she's kind of the more feminine, more maternal one. I think actually the not Tom Hardy, or Quebec Tom Hardy, he's actually, when he's introduced with somebody else, and the other person feels more like he's the more heroic one. And so he feels like he's the side character, and they both feel like they're side characters, but then the more heroic guy is the one who bites it. And it's sort of the Evil Dead effect with the first Evil Dead film, where you don't necessarily know that Bruce Campbell's the main character up front. But when he survives and everybody else dies, you realize, oh God, okay, you were the main character this whole time. And then, so he kind of gets that shorthand up front. So I really love how Ravenous plays with your mind and presents a very believable experience for how this whole thing would happen. I think if we lived in a world with fast zombies, Ravenous is probably the most accurate as to how it would happen. Fucking please, for the love of God, no one make a zombie virus. Let no zombie virus be uncovered by the defrosting of the bowls, you know what I mean? That's my hope. Crossing my fingers for that one. But geez, yeah, just for the sheer raw effect, I recommend Ravenous. But I do recommend them in that order. Watch Alive and then watch Ravenous. End with the better movie, even though it's more depressing, because that is such a great movie. That should be the last flavor. You know, like if you're talking about dinner, why do you eat the appetizer first? It tastes great, but it's not the dinner. You eat the appetizer first, then you have dinner, then you have dessert. And my dessert for you is, of course, Shaun of the Dead. You know, feel good after this. But definitely Netflix right now. Check out #Alive. Check out Ravenous. This is not an ad for Netflix. Netflix gave me no money for this. I'm just saying that word because that's where you can watch it. So watch it. Check it out. And thank you for watching. That's all I've got to say for this week. Yeah. Another twofer. Yeah. Yeah, if you enjoyed this, thanks. If you didn't enjoy it, then thanks. I have the same advice for those who liked it and don't like it. Don't like, don't subscribe, and don't comment. Thank you for watching, and aloha, motherfuckers.